Okay.
Alrighty. We are recording and the live stream is coming up shortly.
Thank you. And I will just recap that we called the meeting to order at 7:11. First order of business was the approval of minutes from September 14th, 2020. Mike Maddow made the motion to accept the minutes. Sue Holloway seconded. All that were present at that meeting voted in favor of accepting the minutes. The two abstaining were Lisa Jennings and Amanda Birch because they were both absent at the last meeting. And that brings us up to date and what happened prior to hitting record. Our next order of business is discussion of strategies to assist local business owners through pandemic and reset phase 2 declaration. Stacy, well, let's just start with you. The reset phase 2 declaration. What does that mean? Oh, I'm sorry. Reset. And did we just accept Amanda in?
Yes.
Okay.
She's connecting right now. Basically, we reverted back, but not all the way back. So they're calling it 2.1. There are some reductions, not all the way back to what they were when we were pure phase 2, but they are capacity reductions in terms of back to 50% for restaurants. There's some reductions for public gatherings, public events. None of this impacts municipal meetings, by the way, but graduations, indoor private events, that sort of thing. There were reductions with regard to capacity in light of the recent spike. A executive order just came out today, and in a nutshell, it basically extended everything that's now currently in place until February 9th, 2021.
Yay. Got something to look forward to for the new year.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone have any questions concerning where we're at in the phases and all that? Or is it fairly straightforward as far as what's happening? And if so, if we're all comfortable with that, the discussion of strategies to assist local businesses. We did start this early on back when the pandemic first started, and we had a lot of various ideas, but the one thing that did seem to take hold was helpful were the newsletters going out from Stacy and the kind of updating of the various changes of COVID regulations and whatnot. Did anyone have any other observations of things that we were doing at the time that were helpful, or things that we were doing that we probably didn't really need to do? No? Everybody has their screen blocked, so I don't know if you're trying to talk and you're muted, or if it's just a deafening silence.
I think it's, well, too muted, and for me and Mike, it seems like deafening silence.
Fair enough. So I will just point out, Stacy and I just came off of the COVID recovery task force meeting at 4 o'clock this afternoon, where we talked to various representatives throughout the town in manufacturing, retailing, restaurants, runs the gamut. There's 9 of us, and we had varying discussions, and we really hadn't met in the last month, over a month. So it's kind of interesting hearing back from everybody now, because we went into a period where things were looking pretty good for a while. We were kind of relaxing, and now we're going back to the phase 2 and what that means to everybody. I know with the schools, they're struggling to stay open. The restaurants are at 50% and trying to figure out how to stay alive when you can only do half the business you would typically be able to do. And now with outdoor dining being reduced, even though they're still allowed to, it's going to be too cold outside to do most anything unless you have sides on your tent, and whether that's safe and whether you can keep people warm enough in there is still yet to be determined.
We could pretend we're in Alaska.
We could pretend we're in Alaska, Lisa says. So. Today was a beautiful day.
Wear your winter gear, your gloves.
That's right.
Bring a blanket.
All the drinks are frozen.
There you go.
I did mention during the meeting earlier that our facility on Center Street is being used the Saturday of Shop Local, and there will be I think probably 4 or 5 different vendors in there, inviting people to come through and shop there as well as other shops in town. But I do think we're going to see a lot of stress if come the holiday season. You know, the restaurants are not going to be doing.
Excuse me, Jeff, what was the date of that?
Whatever they give the Shop Local, I think it's
Saturday after.
the Saturday of that would typically be light up Thomaston, which is not happening either this year. Although I do wonder what will happen in town, even though we say we're not doing the celebration, if people are apt to show up in droves anyways, just to walk through the town in an unstructured way to see the lights and everything else.
Maybe we can promote people to go out and buy gift cards to the restaurants, and go have dinner for themselves and then buy a gift card for someone else. Yeah.
Can you guys hear Lisa, what she just said?
No, I couldn't.
Lisa's suggesting that we try to encourage buying gift cards locally for the holiday season. And I do know that they're doing it nationally, and it would be great if we could get more messaging out through Thomaston to support the local businesses.
Is that something we could put into our next newsletter?
Will do.
When does the next newsletter go out?
Thank you, Stacy.
I'm due to do a November one. I've been throughout everything, or in the spring, everything was coming fast and furious, so I was doing a weekly one, but unless things pick up, I was kind of slowed it back to like once a month.
Okay.
So that works for the business community. I want to notify our community at large.
How do we reach out to the community at large? Liz is asking. That our list is primarily businesses.
Well, I try to, whenever we have something that could go, like when we tried to do the listening sessions and everything else like that, I go out and put them on Thomaston People Speaks. I try to get things on the website here. If you guys have any other ideas, I'm wide open.
Well, I'd love to, if we're going to use this newsletter anyway, and this is going out in November, I'm assuming sometime before Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
So if we were able to get it out before Thanksgiving, and we actually asked any participating businesses to submit potential gift certificate promotions, like buy 3 gift certificates, get a 4th one free, or whatever the promotions might be. We could gather all those, then we could create an economic development newsletter that goes out to Thomaston People Speaks. Maybe we could give it to Francine to publish through the school.
Excellent. Yeah.
Newsletter.
That's a good idea.
Through the library Sue just mentioned, and maybe we also put in a press release in the newspaper saying how we're trying to coordinate all the businesses in town that you may not be able to visit directly now, but buy those gift certificates for when the pandemic's over. Does anyone want to work on that writing and promotion of that?
I can try.
Okay. Melissa said she can try. Do you want to just, are you gonna do it by yourself and bring it back, or do you want to work with somebody?
I mean, if somebody wants to work with me, great. Otherwise, I'll just come up with something and then send it to everyone.
All right. So Stacy, if you could stay in touch with Lissa.
Sounds good.
And if anyone else wants to help, please feel free to either send to the whole group or send to Lissa. I think that would be great, though. It's actually making me think I really need to come up with a gift certificate program over the next week.
Put out on our own Facebook pages and ask people.
Do we want to try and tie it to Light Up the Town, even though we're not doing an official Light Up the Town?
That sounds like a,
Yeah, so Lissa just asked if we want to try to tie it to Light Up the Town, even though there's not an official Light Up the Town. I'm going to say yes.
that sounds great.
And as long as we say, hey,
Even though this is canceled, we'd like to try and,
that day is the Shop Local Day, which
right,
was kind of the original intention of Light Up the Town when they first started it, even though it wasn't called Shop Local that day. At that time, now it became coincidentally the Shop Local Day for the holidays. So yeah, that'd be good. Any other thoughts or suggestions on that?
Send it to us, we could put it on our own Facebook pages.
Sue's saying we can share it in our own pages as well.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And ask people to share.
So yeah, I think we could get a little bit of grassroots things going. And if we get it all out prior to that day, the pop-up shops that are happening, we can promote them as well, and maybe try to create this whole synergy around that day.
does anyone know if the churches are doing anything that day? I know a lot of them, they used to have
I
the
would do it early.
craft sale. and stuff.
Lissa's asking if the churches are doing anything that day or in and around that time, so we probably want to find out about that as well.
Typically, the bazaars were earlier than Thanksgiving. We were usually the first 3 weekends.
Well-
But, like, the Congregational Church always did something, the Methodist Church, obviously, they're not there anymore, but they always did something.
Yeah.
So the Covenant Church does a
Yeah.
cookie
cookie
drive
walk.
or cookie walk.
Usually it was earlier in the day.
So we'll have to find out if the churches are doing anything. So that our newsletter would be kind of a town-wide newsletter
Mhm.
for Light Up the Town COVID session. What's still
COVID
happening,
style.
what's not happening. So how can we reach out to I can reach out to the Covenant Church. Does anyone know anyone at the Congregational
Yeah, I
Church?
do.
Okay, so we'll check the Congregational Church.
Catholic Church, anybody?
We got any good Catholics here on our committee?
I could reach over there if you'd like.
Thank you. Are you a good Catholic or are you just a good Samaritan?
Does anyone have
Well, I try to be a good Catholic. I don't know.
contact for all the restaurants? We have an email list for just the restaurants.
Lissa's asking if we have a point of contact for all the restaurants in town. We probably don't have a subgroup on our list, but we could probably extract it pretty easily, right?
Yeah, we probably could. And then we could probably make up the difference with Jane from the COVID,
Yeah,
you think?
absolutely.
I'm just thinking if we could reach out to them before I do this flyer, or, then we could put those businesses that are willing to participate or that want to participate. Or do we want to keep it generic?
Lisa's asking if we should be asking the restaurants and any other participants sooner than the newsletter, or if we just want to do a generic ask through the newsletter.
Well, since we're kind of pressed for time, I'm kind of thinking we reach out to them and then we're able to put it in the newsletter, no?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's in 2.5 weeks, so we don't have too much time.
so we kind of have to reach out to them this week if we can. Is it possible for you to put something out there this week I'm not sure how many restaurants we have, 20 something.
I have all the phone numbers. I have. I just don't have all the emails necessarily.
All right, so if you could share the list, I'm sure I have several emails from restaurants, and maybe some other people have other restaurant emails from restaurants. We
Well,
can
we
do it that
certainly
way.
could call them and ask.
We can call them too, but that's,
Right, ask for their emails.
it's somewhat labor intensive too, so.
I know, each took 5 or something.
So why don't we start with that? If you could send us the list of, either the whole list or the list of restaurants, and then between the members here, hopefully we can track down several.
Take an hour,
Emails.
you know.
Sue's
I,
point on that.
I'll make a phone call and see.
But
what
I know I have 10 or 15 emails from them
Yeah.
already. Amanda, were you saying something?
well, I was going to say I would call the restaurants, but Sue said she would, so that's fine.
Sometimes it's good to have your microphone muted. Sue says she's willing to share.
Okay,
Okay, so the two of you will coordinate together then, but send that list out to everybody and maybe we can shorten that by just giving. When we were updating the list a while ago, didn't we collect a lot of those already, Stacy?
Are
We
we
did
only doing
definitely
this-
get some. I don't know if we got all.
Okay.
Are we
Yes,
only doing this for restaurants or are we including other retailers?
well, we can do other retailers too, but
I mean, we have the jewelry store,
Yeah.
a hardware store, there's a furniture refinisher, there's a lot of hidden
no,
places that might
we
also
should
want to
definitely
be involved.
put it out to everybody and ask them to submit. But you know what? It's a little bit like the with the Arts and Culture Collaborative or the Northwest Arts Council. If you're submitting events, you get deadlines. You have to submit them. You have to have certain criteria around it. If you do that, you're in, and if you don't, you're out. You know, I don't think we have enough time to hold everybody's hands on this. They either have to come up with their specials or participation or not. Does that make
No, I
sense?
agree. I think we should just be sure we're touching all of the retail businesses.
Yeah, no,
not just-
Well, if we get enough people from all those other types of businesses, there's nothing saying we can't make it kind of a weekly thing. You know, between now and like the holidays, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah,
Here, this is this week's special, this is next week's special, blah, blah, blah.
and you know, maybe in the long run, it would help us to get in better touch with everybody out there. If we're regularly posting these types of communications, it might prove to be effective for everybody else.
If you put something on there that says, if you want to be on the list, contact Stacy, she'll put you on the list, right? Point of contact,
Yes.
land use office.
Can you include that, Stace?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussions on or strategies on how to assist local business owners? One of the things that we had talked about a while back, and I'm not sure where it's going and if it's needed, but you know, is there any interest in going to the SBA or others to, you know, because we had kind of canceled all those workshops when COVID hit. Is there some interest in providing Zoom workshops for people that maybe are looking for ideas on how to survive COVID in the business world?
Is there anything out there?
I don't know. Is there anything out there? Has anyone seen anything?
I periodically, more a while ago than recently, but yeah, there were some about how to apply for the various different loans and this, that, and the other thing. When the forgiveness started, there was some webinars on that, and I forwarded that around too. Anything else, I know that the Restaurant Association of Connecticut, they're good. They hold a lot of different things. So if people are members over there, they're seeing a lot of things that they can go to and virtually and attend and learn about.
I know the one workshop that we actually hosted and put out, and we only had, 3 or 4 businesses attended, but you know, there was definitely a desire for them to get connected a little bit more and try to get some ideas on how to survive this. Yeah, I'm not sure if any of us have anything more to offer than anybody else, but maybe the Small Business Association or the Chamber or someone else would. Or maybe it's just sharing those Zoom and seminars that are already out there.
Now, do we have any information on how the businesses are doing? I know there's a few restaurants I frequent and they seem to be doing all right. Do we know of any that have significant concerns, given everything?
So our COVID recovery task force does look at all this, but we're not really effective in getting feedback from everybody. And I think maybe at some point in the near future, we do need to follow up more. We have Jane Lamphere from Black Rock Tavern, who's on our committee, and she kind of speaks to some of the restaurants' needs and woes and whatnot. And the other, we have manufacturers on there, realtors, bankers, nonprofits, various things like that. But it might be something to consider as we move forward, trying to get some sort of questionnaire out there to see where people are at and if they're surviving this and how we might be able to help.
Yeah, I think that would be good because it would allow us to focus our efforts. At least on the bank side, we're actually seeing some businesses that are booming because of this, or in spite of this. And then there are some that are having more difficulty. So I think it'd be good knowing which businesses exactly in town are having the issues. And more importantly, are there any that are close to possibly closing their doors?
How about a spotlight, like a business spotlight, in the newsletter that we put out? The chamber does it, and they charge for it, but, we're trying to promote our small little town. We don't have our own chamber, because we're too little, and they have to belong to one or the other. A lot of these small businesses don't have the money or the finances to be able to join those chambers. It's expensive. Can we, I know we've talked about this in the past, and we said we don't want to promote businesses, but that's part of our job, is to promote the businesses that we have in town and to support them. Why can't we put a spotlight in, maybe we highlight 2 or 3 restaurants per month, so that way nobody feels like we're leaving anybody out.
Anyone have thoughts on that?
We could also reach out to the businesses that we're highlighting and let them know that we're doing it and see if they want to offer any kind of specials or anything like that, or if they want to give us any info or any contact info or anything like that.
And then it shows them that we're trying to work for them and help them in whatever way we can. And then maybe we also post it on Thomaston People Speaks, that business spotlight, whether that's we create a PDF and, or create an image file of it so that we can post it on there.
So I think the problem, and everybody can weigh in on this if you'd like, but I think one of the problems you have with a spotlight, and that's why the chamber charges for it, you pay to be spotlighted, because it is really advertising for whatever group that you're spotlighting. And if you said, hey, let's spotlight and we'll do just arbitrarily Black Rock Tavern and Krabby L's and Chow and a couple of others, say, well, why promote them and not us?
But we can go to them ahead of time and say, this is what we'd like to do, not only to promote your business, but to also help you with your business. We're going to do this for every business in town.
Right.
Do you want to take part?
But it may take a year before you get to all the businesses in town. They may be out of business by then. I'm just wondering if there's another way to handle that where we're not necessarily highlighting any one business, but maybe.
Okay, so we do a whole restaurant spotlight, and these are all the restaurants in town. JDT's focuses on, rock steak or whatever. Krabby L's specializes in seafood. We could do something like that. Each one can have their own little tagline. We could reach out to them and say, here's what we're doing. We need one tagline from you.
So why don't we do this? If we're going to reach out to restaurants anyways, right? Let's ask them if they're going to be doing a promotion and if they could provide us with a 1-paragraph description of their business.
Not even 1 paragraph, 1 sentence.
All right, 1 sentence.
Because we need to, if we're going to highlight all of them,
No.
right? We're not going to have a lot of real estate to be able to do that if we want to keep this to 1 page. So one sentence that focuses on something that they feel they're best at or whatever. And then we do it that way.
Anyone, what does everybody think about that? Can we ask them to provide a one sentence description of their business that best describes what they're doing, along with whatever specials they're running?
I think if they want to be highlighted, they can make it into one sentence.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What businesses are struggling? The bank, was it Mike? Who said, somebody said that they knew which
So-
ones were doing well.
So Mike,
some were-
Mike Sweeney, can you elaborate at all as far as any businesses that you're aware of that's struggling?
Struggling, no. I just really meant the restaurants and places that I stop into often. The Tony's is Great Wall. We're in pretty regularly. Hometown, they seem to be doing all right just based on the conversations I'm having with them. I haven't spoken with anyone in particular that said, hey, it's bad enough that we're getting close to closing our doors. The ice cream shop was open this weekend too, and they seem to be getting a decent amount of business. I really think if anyone's had conversations with businesses here in town that actually are struggling, are we hearing them having these issues?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that's going to change in the short term, because outdoor dining is going away. So like a restaurant like Krabby Al's that did not open for takeout during the phase 1 of the pandemic, they only reopened once phase 2 came about, and they were able to do outdoor dining and some indoor. Their business is going to be cut down a lot. Plus, they're closing at 9:30 now versus later.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are some restaurants that are definitely going to see the effects of this. I do know, the Ink Spot in Thomaston, the print shop, they're not doing nearly as much printing as they used to prior to COVID. And that may have changed, but she was saying that during that workshop that we had in April or May. So I think there are some businesses that are going to be somewhat prone to a loss of sales because of this. I mean, certainly, if you look at the Thomaston Opera House and what we're doing here, we are basically non-existent. We just had our haunted house tours, which were somewhat successful, but a flash in the pan of what we would typically be doing at this time. And we're looking to reopen, but on a very small scale basis. And I think there's probably a lot of other smaller businesses like that are seeing those kind of effects.
Businesses that are dependent on people going out and working. Another example would be the dry cleaners. They were struggling already, but this has devastated them because no one's wearing their good clothes, even less than before. Now sweats. So I know he's definitely looking for something.
Yeah, promote COVID cleaning.
For the people who get sick.
True.
Yeah, I think every industry has to kind of come up with their own ways of salvaging themselves.
If you're innovative, you're going to collapse.
Yeah, it can be very difficult. When you start looking at the holiday season, how many people are going to be having large dinners and stuff like that when you don't have the big gatherings? How many people, did people buy pumpkins the way you normally would at Halloween? So it definitely has still effects.
I don't know. We went to the day we went to the pumpkin place.
Were they?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, it was a nice day too. They had live music there. Great.
So there may be businesses that we have an assumption they're doing they are not. We don't really know who they are.
Yeah, so I think in the newsletter, we want to just continue the call for, hey, let us know, give us feedback, let us know how you're doing. And Stacy, if you don't mind, either putting in your email or the EDC email, and just see if people communicate back with us, and then next month we can, read those emails and see what's going on, and if there's some urgent need that we need to address before a meeting, we would know about that as well. So do we want to have any further discussions on this, or is that enough for this month and we can move on to new business? Anyone else have any other burning ideas that we should be discussing here? Okay. Under new business, we have discussion of tax incentives for 437 South Main Street. Michael Panett. And it looks like we have discussion of enterprise zone for 135 South Main Street, George Capra, and
That was a goof. I think that's supposed to be Naugatuck Council of Government.
okay, yes. And the other one, which isn't on here, but I did want to ask about it, Stacy, do you have any update on a former application that may or may not have been submitted?
Yes, Pat had the information. The application was submitted. However, the first step of it is that she verifies the expenditures as per the building permits versus what was declared. And they did not match up, like, even close. So she had contacted the person and let them know that was the issue. So maybe perhaps they needed to come back in with some additional information, and maybe there were some building permits that did not get filed for. And that is where the matter currently stands.
So couple of concerns I have on this. It came to me through Matt Stankiewicz, who was asking the business about applying for a tax incentive for the construction on North Main Street right now. And he said, well, I didn't think it was worth my while, so we sent in another one and I never heard anything back. So is there a way to clean up our process so that EDC is fully aware of what's happening when that application comes in, regardless of whether they're eligible for it or not? I think we should be aware of the fact that they came in.
I think unfortunately this one got lost in the transition.
I figured that much, as it probably came in at the tail end of Jeremy, and you came in and probably it wasn't handed off to you, so that's where that one fell through. But I just want to make sure that we don't have others that happen, so that, like, can we let Pat know anytime any tax incentive discussion comes in, that we somehow are aware of it on our committee level, even prior, if someone's even talking about submitting an application, I'd like our committee to know so that we can do whatever we can to help that process.
Okay, but just so we're all on the same page, and in this sort of a situation, do you want to know that they're being filed before we've even done the calculations or anything on them?
I don't think it hurts for us to know. And again, Mike Maddow is probably the only person, maybe Sue, sitting on this commission right now that could go back to the early years of the tax incentives to talk about how we went through the process then. And truly, they would come and talk to EDC even prior to filling out the applications, just to learn about what the tax incentives might be. And I know we held the hands of some people to get them through the process. And
I think you're making a good point there, Jeff. And ultimately, Stacy, yes, we were aware of them even before the calculations were done, because it gives us an opportunity to reach out to them.
Sure.
At least to, even if they don't file an application, it's an opportunity for them to know that we exist and
Sure.
and for us to begin communication with them.
No problem.
yeah,
Sorry to cut you off, Jeff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And just that, as commissioners, we have a very unique role. Our whole charge is to help this process along. Whereas, Pat is wearing a lot of different hats in the office. Stacy, you are too, as land use officer as well. So, we can kind of be their advocate sometimes, even if they haven't come into the office as much as they should or reported as much. We can help get that information in.
Okay.
And I'm just going to take authority here and say Mike Maddow's our point person on this.
That'd be fine.
Yeah. So just because you're very familiar with it, you've done it before, you're part of our business liaison group anyway. So is there any actual applications right now with 437 South Main Street that
There is not. I've not been contacted once.
Okay. And also with Georgia Capra, what was his status with the enterprise?
That was, there was a little bit of roundabout on that, but we ultimately have him on the right track. Because of when he sent everything in, he wasn't going to be able to be considered in the round that I think it was October 1st, but he's in for next October 1st, that round. He filled out the preliminary information. We had to sign a affidavit confirming that the location of Clocktown Brewery was underutilized space and had been for more than a year, and that's already been done. It's ready to go. He said he was going to be picking it up today. He wasn't in today, but I would imagine he'll be in later this week. That's a part of his application. And then from there, they over at the DECD, the enterprise zone people will review it, and we're waiting to hear back from them if he needs to do the more complete application. But the preliminary application is done.
All right.
Great.
Well, that's good news anyway. I mean, I would have liked to see him get it this year, but as long as he's on track for it, that's a good thing.
And for what it's worth, I had a really good conversation with the people over at the state about the process. And, even with hints about being the squeaky wheel, getting the grease, in terms of calling there once a month to check on it, in terms of making it clear that it's a priority to the town. So that is useful information that I now have on my calendar to keep calling them and reminding them.
I have to think that that particular business fits the enterprise zone categories pretty well.
Yes.
Especially considering all of the investment that they've had to put in with regards to capital.
Yes, and the woman that I spoke with completely agreed with that assessment.
Great.
It will be
That's
a
good.
boom for Thomaston. There's no doubt about it. And there's already great attendance at the brewery. He's doing very well. So. All right, so I'd like to move on to item number C, discussion of the townwide Wi-Fi with Northwest COG.
Well, yeah.
I think
7 years of being in the Northwest Hills COG, it was a Freudian slip on my part. I'm sorry. It was actually supposed to be Naugatuck Valley.
So make a amendment to the agenda for it to read Naugatuck Valley COG. Now, Melissa, you were looking into that a little bit. You had asked about it
I
last
just
month.
asked about it because to me, that's like something that could be a huge benefit for our town, not just as our residents, but for the businesses in town too.
Now, were you in attendance the last? You weren't at the last meeting when we discussed it. It was brought to my attention through. Oh boy, I don't remember his name now. From Morris, he has the farm there. The realtor.
Ben Piletsky.
Oh no, it wasn't him. No, it was Laurel Ridge Farm. Morisani. Yeah, he had brought it to my attention that they're they're working on it in his town, and that there is.
Where it's really needed.
I just wanna- It's basically, to get high-speed fiber optic lines run through town, and it would be something that the town would do through bonding and whatnot to make this happen. And then they basically lease these lines out to companies that would then provide that Wi-Fi signal to residents and businesses. We had some discussion last meeting about how that could be very beneficial to businesses that are trying to bring Wi-Fi in, but also just for everybody in town as we start doing remote learning and remote businesses and everything. The faster Wi-Fi is greatly needed. But I don't think we.
How realistic is it?
Well.
Pay for it like cable.
Liz asking how realistic it is. It's very realistic in that, you know, there are towns that are doing it, and it's making their towns more attractive to people who are moving in, and it's also a very affordable internet service, and they're saying that the investment, you know, this internet service, the fiber optic could last 40 years. And while there may be other innovations coming down the pike that would make it obsolete, it wouldn't happen very quickly. And they're probably like a telephone wires that are still run.
Absolutely.
They're somewhat obsolete as telephone wires, but have been repurposed for a lot of other communications. So I don't know how we want to proceed with that. If there are people that want to pursue this, look at the possibilities and see if it's something that is viable for Thomaston, something we might want to recommend. Or
Where would we even start with this? Just reaching out to COG or?
Yeah, I think we would start with the COG and say, hey, you know, what can you provide us with information? Maybe they could come to our meeting and give us an overview of what it meant and how we would go about doing it, and maybe take it from there. I do know, you know, if it comes down to it, if we're asking the town to make a major investment in something like this, even through bonding, that, you know, you're going to have to cross your T's and dot your I's to make sure that this is something that would have a return on investment for the town.
So we'd basically become competition for the likes of Frontier and
Yep.
Comcast and Optimum. Is that kind of what we're looking at here?
Yes.
Yes.
Sort of a fourth option or third option.
Yeah, it's
really
another option. It is competition to some degree, but, you know, also I think you have to look at, you know, if you look at customer satisfaction for you know, whether it's telephone internet service or cable internet service, there's a greater want than satisfaction, if you will, on those. So people are really looking for faster, more effective.
Oh, there's an outcry for it. I'm sure you've seen it regularly as well, Jeff.
Not 5G.
Sue's asking if it's 5G. It's not 5G. But it's fiber optic communications, which
We have
basically
that down the middle of Main Street. We have the fiber optics. I remember when they put it in.
there is some fiber optics
Downtown.
on Main Street, yeah, and it's extremely expensive for.
So are we talking about adding fiber optic lines throughout the entire town?
Yes.
Yes.
That's gonna, wow.
But I've read some articles on it, and the benefit for Thomaston is we don't have a ton of miles of road, right? So if you look at a town like Naugatuck, there's hundreds of miles of roads down there. We don't
Right.
have that here, so the cost per mile is going to be pretty small in comparison, right? Because we have, you know, especially Highwood Farms, you've got a lot of houses close together. It's much simpler for them to do it up there.
Sure.
in other areas where, you know, maybe Hill Road, maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but overall, you know, the cost per home is pretty inexpensive. So, you know, if they looked at it that way, you know,
Mhm.
as cheap as $2 per home.
Yeah, and
Oh,
then,
okay, that's really better than I was expecting.
And, you know, those numbers could be different because that information I was reading was based on, you know, some information that was out in Colorado or something.
Mhm.
So I don't know how many miles of road they had in that specific area, but.
Or how close the
and then
houses are
obviously
together.
Monthly fees, right? So maybe it's $50 per month and that gets you, you know,
they're actually saying it's probably, when I was talking to Morrisani, he's estimating there would probably be $75 a month, which is basic, right in line with what you'd pay for all other internet services at this point. But it would be way faster
right.
and way more reliable. And the idea is that the town would put up the initial investment to make this happen, but then the return would come from leasing those lines then to private organizations that are then, you know, providing the service to the homes.
Would it be faster though? Because isn't Frontier, aren't they optical as well?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything in town that I know of.
They're not fast.
Yeah, I don't know what Frontier has, if anything. I do know cable Altice has some fiber optic lines, but it's very limited.
Yeah. Well, they're running through their coaxial lines.
Right.
And we could guarantee
Mostly.
this to all residents, no matter where they live in town.
That's the idea.
That's where we're starting. Whether, you know, there's some remote areas that are impossible to get to, or would be, you know, too cost prohibitive. That, I mean, you know, you'd have to have a committee that would, you know, look at all the ins and outs and find out what is possible. But I would think it would be way more than 90% of the town could easily be strung, because most of the town doesn't have that much of a rural feel to it. You know, customers may have to pay from a telephone pole into their house or something if it's long distance and strung or whatever. So
Are these underground?
I think they would only be underground where there's already existing cabling underground. Otherwise, it'd be strung similar to all the other.
Or if
Lines.
somebody wanted to pay to put it underground.
Yeah, if you wanted to pay to put it underground, you certainly could.
Well, I think like a good example is Highwood. We don't have above ground utilities. Everything is underground.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
in
mine
So
that
I think
case, in that case, it would stay underground. I would assume. And
Right.
my other assumption is that there's capacity to expand in Highwood to be able to run things like fiber optics.
Right.
I don't know that.
From an economic point of view, or, you know, it would put Thomaston on the map. People would want to move here because of it, because there's so many people now working.
Well, not just people, but possibly business,
Businesses.
you know?
Yeah. I do think,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think one would
being
bring
a small town, it wouldn't be a tremendously cost prohibitive to do it. Unlike other towns where, you know, you're talking, like you're saying, hundreds of
30 square
miles.
like
This could be managed pretty easily, and it does put us in a position where we're saying, hey, look, this is why Thomaston's great. It's a small town that can respond quickly to the growing needs of, you know, society and you know, business and everything else. Do business here, live here,
Mhm.
go to school here, all that kind of stuff.
So just running some very, very simple math. What do we have? About 2,600 households in town
About that.
and 500 businesses,
Yeah.
roughly.
About
Okay.
that.
So if that's the case, you're looking at roughly 3,000 units. Let's say it's $5 instead of $2. That's tremendously inexpensive if that's all it is. You're talking about $15,000. Does that sound right?
Well, right here, Stacy's circling right now. We can afford it with our business model.
Oh.
Our region of 25 towns could pass every home with fiber optic wiring for less than $6 per home per month, based on securing 40-year loans. Every one town such as Norfolk could be done for less than $20 per month. By comparison, just maintaining our roads can cost $100 per month per home per month, and the state now pays $488 per home per month for education.
Good job, Stacy. You found that right when, right at the right moment. And it's $6.
So I guess what I'd like to do,
It's worth investigating.
yeah, I would love to investigate it. I don't know, is that something you wanted to do?
Sure.
So, Melissa's shown some interest in it, and she's looked into it a little bit already. If there's somebody else who would love to join her to do this,
You know what? I wouldn't mind.
and Mike, you'd be a perfect choice for that because you're also the eyes and ears of the Board of Finance, which will be crucial if we're doing this. We need to know.
That's kind of, yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. It would be helpful for me to be able to have conversations with them about it.
If I could task the two of you to maybe just, look at these pages, read it over, see if there's any other information we can gather. We can start this discussion. I don't know how soon we could have someone talk to us, although I suppose we could do a Zoom meeting with everybody at our next regular meeting as well. But why don't you guys look into this?
If there's been anything within the state.
Okay.
I didn't catch that.
But she said she's going to check to see if there's been any progress in the state on this. And I would also suggest maybe reaching out to John Morisani, and anyone else that in the region that's looking to do it.
I don't mind helping out on that. If you two need any help with that, Mike and Lissa, I know you guys are really good at it already, but just offering if you need anything.
Thanks.
I don't know what I'm doing, so.
That's all right. I would start with this website and see what it's all about. And you might even consider trying to set up a Zoom meeting with someone like John, who's heading that up for, I think it's Litchfield, if I'm not mistaken, or Bantam. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to hear how they're making out what they're doing.
What is that? It's northwest-connect.org.
Northwest.
Yeah, I think I've looked at that.
Yeah. So Stacy, if you could send share a link of this page, at least
That'd be good.
The three, Melissa, Roxanne, and Mike, that'd be great. And anyone else who wants it. All right, so Stacy, did you have anything on a staff report that we haven't covered already? We're not hearing you if you're talking.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, yes, there you go.
Okay. Sometimes my headphones get pulled out and I don't know. We pretty much already covered everything that I would have wanted to bring to your attention.
So if we go to subcommittee reports, we have, and actually the other thing we don't have on the agenda anymore, which I don't know if we moved it deliberately or not, but business happenings. And I'm sure we've had some changes over the last couple of months during COVID. Did anyone have anything to share with us?
Stitch in Time moved over to Elm Street, and they've opened a new bridal shop over there. She has more space, and she expanded into bridal. I don't know if we mentioned that before.
I don't know, but that's, Stitch in Time is the bridal shop as well, or is it?
It's, yeah,
It's bridal consignment.
Okay. We did have the new photography shop opening up where H&R Block once was. It's, I believe it's Josh Gallo is doing photography and video production
right.
in there. He had his grand opening 2 weeks ago, I believe. I don't exactly know what his business model is. I know he's had some success already prior to opening the store.
A new restaurant, right? The empanada place or whatever. The
Tasty empanada.
yeah, tasty empanada.
Now, I believe they're sharing space with JDT. Is that what's happening?
That's
Yeah.
what I heard.
Yep. Which is an interesting business model because
Yeah.
JDTs did change their format. They eliminated breakfast and lunch, and they have gone to strictly dinners, which is kind of, for me. I used to go there for breakfast on weekends and whatnot, but they've now gone with strictly dinners, and they're really, I think they're pushing a lot with the takeout during COVID. They have family-style dinners and things of that nature, but it leaves their kitchen available for a great deal of time during the day. So
That fit pretty nicely then.
that works out well for them. Is there anything else that people have noticed in town as far as businesses?
Well, we did have the gentleman come in who purchased the Chubba's Bagels.
Oh, did it actually sell?
Yeah, and he's going to be, well, at least from what he told us, he's going to be running everything exactly the same.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Do you know who it is, Stacy?
Oh, he didn't file, he took the paperwork with him and he didn't leave it with me. I cannot recall his name. I apologize.
So I will say one thing with business happenings, and I don't know exactly when all this has occurred, but we haven't discussed it before. But we have had some rising crime in town, in that some places were broken into and ATMs were stolen.
Oof.
And there's been some other break-ins, auto break-ins and things like that. There's nothing really EDC can do about it, but we should be at least aware of it. We typically have a pretty safe town, but I do think sometimes we get the out of town influence coming into for what they're thinking is easy pickings, if you will. But I know it has adversely affected a couple of businesses.
The guy that I was sharing my space with moved to Bristol, so there's the office that I was in is available. I moved over to the other side. A lot of people think I left town, but I didn't. So you hear of any rumors, please dispel them. I just moved to the other side so I could see out the front window instead of having my back to the door.
The rumor of Sue's demise is greatly exaggerated.
But anyhow, if you know anybody who wants a small space, it's available.
Have you added that? Have you requested to add that to our space list?
It's kind of a sublet. No, but
It's still space available.
yeah.
I would point out, I don't know if we've had the announcement on this or anyone's talked about it, but the Connecticut, I think it's called the Connecticut Art Gallery, which is on this above Krabby Al's. They're featuring a lot of artists, including some local artists. And I've been in there a couple of times. It's really great art, and I think they've been pretty successful in selling pieces during their showings. If people get a chance, maybe when COVID's a little less restrictive, make a visit to the art gallery.
Somebody can work on going out that space there by the bridge. Notice all the lights are on there.
In the build, Lisa's asking if there's work going on in the Plumet Atwood building near the bridge? Does anyone know anything? Stacy, anyone?
No.
I did see them up on the roof there too, so, we don't know who owns that building now, do we?
That's, isn't that Diesel?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
thought
they
those-
had done a roof repair. They had gotten a permit for a roof repair a couple months ago.
I know there was some talk about the Railroad Museum at one point buying that, but I didn't know if anything ever came of
Does anyone know about, what's going on with the expansion over where the old Thomaston Motors used to be?
Well, that's why I was asking if there was a tax incentive application in for that,
Right.
because it's a pretty good size expansion. And
Yeah, I did see it.
and that's when Matt reached out to the landlord on that to see if they were doing anything. He said, well, he's already got an application in for other stuff and hadn't heard anything, so he didn't think he'd be able to get it. So
I mean, that space is almost as big as the original.
it's a good sized space that they're doing, yeah. And I have to think it would qualify in some degree for our.
Well, I heard-
incentive.
Oh, yeah.
Hired.
You're talking frame up with that. That's, there's some money
More
that they're spending there.
Yeah, so they're hiring more employees because of it. So
Right.
it's a win-win for us. All right, so I just wanted to, I did create a downtown parking survey. This survey is really just intended for business owners, landlords, and just, the people who are immediately affected by this. I gotta figure out, can I share on my screen, Stacy?
You should be able to. I made you a co-host.
So,
The only thing is maybe I stopped my share.
Actually, I have them printed out for you guys. There you go. There you go. Okay, so.
Write it on.
You can do whatever you want with that.
There we go. Now maybe you can do it.
Okay. Let's see what we can do. So share screen. And am I sharing a screen now?
Yep.
There you go.
So you can see the survey?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so again, Mike has looked at this because I sent it to him in advance, but then he completed it and he wasn't able to go back and do it again. So this is everybody's chance to give me edits on this before I make this public to other businesses and landlords in town. My main objective for this is to find out what they want us to do now that the parking meters have been removed. So we have, it's the wild, wild west right now in that there's no parking restrictions, no time limits, anything like that. So my first question is, have you noticed a change in parking conditions since the meters were removed in 2020? And on every one, I've asked for comments. So if they say yes, they can say what it is. So like with me, the one thing I noticed is people don't park as close to the intersections as they did when the meters were there because they're not confident that that's a parking space, which I think is a good thing. And so I asked that down the road. My second question, the town is reviewing possible modifications to existing parking regulations. Please indicate your preference for parking on Main Street between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Yeah, and again, we can change these times. I was just trying to find a happy zone there.
I think you should get rid of 30-minute parking because if you're there to eat, there's no way you're gonna be done in 30 minutes.
So Lissa's saying we should eliminate 30-minute parking. there are going to be some businesses that are gonna say they want the 30-minute parking though, because they're a hit and run business. For example, Mona Lisa's Takeout, the
Convenience store,
Mhm.
the ice cream shop.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's where you can have like a mix though. I see you have a mix up
Or
there.
maybe where you have a higher concentration of restaurants, like Mona Lisa, JDT's, Black Rock, maybe those are, an hour or more, maybe over by the ice cream shop, the Chinese place, it's 30.
Right.
so, and Stacy may want to weigh in on this, because if we were to say, okay, these places are all 2-hour parking and these are 30-minute or 10-minute parking, or whatever, maybe it's a pickup zone, you create pickup
Right.
places. How does that change if the business changes? If Mona's Lisa were to move and suddenly it becomes something else, an office space rather than retail?
That's a very good question. I mean, because whatever you put there is going to be what the police department enforces on, and the town is authorizing the signage there to be for whatever it is. So I don't know how that's not going to change super easy. You know what I mean?
DOT is involved as well because it's a state road, right?
Well, I don't think they're going to dictate what people can, how long people can park. That would be up to us. They're more concerned about traffic flow.
Didn't they say that if we put up new signs though, we have to let them know?
It has to go through them. I thought
Yeah.
so too.
Yeah, and
Amanda.
we need to, they don't want to have anything to do with it, but they need to be there or send a representative or something like that to like watch what we do and then review it afterwards.
They need it on file. And yes, as far as, when they're doing, they want to make sure that it complies to whatever traffic lines they're painting and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I don't think they do anything with enforcing, but they want to be like part of the putting in of the signs.
Just to give you an idea, I put these questions in to create just this type of conversation with the people that are going to be filling it out. Because some are going to want 30-minute parking, some are going to want unlimited all-day parking, and probably
others,
most are going to want 2-hour parking.
Well, I think your delineation is good, Jeff. I think you have to leave all of those in for that specific reason, because you're going to have some businesses that are going to want that or less.
Right. Number 3 has what?
No comment. No comment space. Unless it's been print.
Other. Oh, I may not print it out. You have screenshots that I'm printing, because I can't actually print this from SurveyMonkey because I'm using the free version. So my readers here in the office are limited. So question number 3, indicate your preferences for parking on Main Street between 5 p.m. and 12 a.m. Sunday through Saturday. So that's basically the evening parking, which goes to restaurants and whatnot. Because, is it possible to have different parking for different times of the day? Possibly. That could be possible. So again, I used pretty much the same mix there as I did on the previous question. Please indicate your position on overnight parking on Main Street between 12 a.m. and 8 a.m. Now, Stacy may be able to weigh in on this, but I do know there are some businesses that are not happy with the second and third floor tenants parking on Main Street.
I have heard that, yes.
Not only overnight, but throughout the entire
All
week.
day.
Yeah.
And I did notice that during the pandemic that, with both Mona Lisa and Black Rock Tavern looking for curbside pickup, and there were cars that were just parked there all day, all night, over the weekends, making it difficult for that. So, and I'm sure the landlords are going to be pushed back on that a little bit, but at some, what we need to do, because Sue was about to ask a question, I think, well, do we have parking problems downtown? A shortage of parking.
No, it's not quite.
No, but you were something on the point is we don't have a clear-cut just lack of parking. We just have a clear-cut system for parking that would work on different times of the day for different people. It's my opinion anyway.
But didn't it open up now that the back of the Adams grocery store is open through? Didn't that change the dynamics?
So Sue's asking if opening up Adams changes dynamics. And yes, it did to some degree, and no, it didn't in other degrees. And when we got that opened, it's a temporary arrangement that I have with Adams. That is not permanently open. I'm hoping that it stays open and that they say, oh yeah, this is working out fine, but we just asked them to do it for this pandemic, which they did graciously do.
Okay, so do the landlords that have units upstairs have places for their tenants to park?
Did everybody hear that?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, all the tenants have some sort of off-street parking, but they don't necessarily like it because in the where Red's Hardware is, for example, the apartments up there, I think it's 6 apartments totally up there, and the 3 in the front or the 4 in the front, their main access is from Main Street up to those apartments, whereas the ones in the back have access from the back of the building. So it's more convenient for them to just park in the front and go up their stairs than to park in the back and go around to the front of the building and up the stairs. So that's why they probably do that. And then I think
What's that for? Are you
it's,
talking about the Red's Hardware building?
yeah.
No, they can go right out the back. There's a stairway that goes right off the back. I've been up there.
But is it as convenient? I don't know.
Yeah, just
Okay.
as easy.
Then I don't know why. But people are definitely parking on Main Street, and there is parking in the back. And part of it might be the condition of the parking in the back, which maybe we'll get some comments because it's like the lunar landing back there sometimes.
So then, maybe we need to enforce with those landlords that you need to enforce with your tenants that their parking is back there, not on the main road.
Right. And Stacy will tell you, I think, that there's already regulations in place that ban tenant parking on Main Street for overnight parking. Is that correct, Stacy?
Where?
On Main Street. I remember,
No, I'm saying, no, not in anything for,
Jeremy had some sort of regulation pulled up a year or two ago, stating that if you were on the second and third floor, you're not allowed to park on Main Street. Like that's not designated.
well, I mean, when you create a multi, a situation where it says business on the first floor and mixed use sort of situation. Yeah, I mean, it's part of our reg that the person who wants to create that would have to have adequate off-street parking. So yeah, that's in there, but as far as it's really more not going after the person doing the parking so much as it's going after the person who wants to create the multi-use, making sure that up front that they have what they need
Right.
in order to get approved. So going forward, yes, but that's not going to stop anybody from deciding to ignore the parking space provided and go to another one.
Then it's just a matter of enforcement.
Yeah.
Which brings us to question number 5, which is similar to 4. Indicate your position on more than 8 hours of parking on weekends and holidays. So basically, should people be allowed to park, on Main Street weekends and holidays?
Should you say on Main Street?
Yeah, I probably should add on Main
It's
Street.
just, I see 2 typographical errors, but
Okay.
it says between 12 and 8, and then the other one starts from 9 to 5. So
Okay.
so you want to either end it at 8 or end it at 9 or start it at 8. And then the other one was the first sentence, I thought. I can't remember if you can go back up to the first sentence.
9 to 5, 5 to 12, 12 to 8.
So you notice it changed. It should be changed.
Yep, thank you. Change. Change that to 9 a.m. Okay. So that's why I asked the question about, the 8 hours or more on the weekends. One of the issues we are going to have is there are some businesses on Main Street that don't participate in any kind of retail. For example, Thomaston Insurance, Gillen and Gillen Law Office, and there's probably a few others. Their employees are parking on Main Street and going into the office and taking up that space. And I think at some point that has to be addressed if we're going to try to return any kind of patron traffic to downtown Thomaston. So we probably have to consider how we're going to tackle that as we move forward. But I would like to hear back from those people. Any thoughts on that?
Some of them have space in the back.
They may.
I don't know if all of them have space.
Well, Gillen and Gillen probably has 2 spaces in the back. It's a very tight alleyway,
Right.
and I don't think Dave really has anything viable there. And
I thought he did.
maybe one
Way
space.
or the other
Does,
one.
does Sue put up fences for the daycare back there? So, so do you think painting traffic lights for parking spaces, curbs, and restrictions would be beneficial? Yes, no, not sure, and comment. So my main reason to ask that question is I want to be able to go back to the town and say, yes, we need to be, painting in parking spaces and lines and whatnot. Because right now it's again the wild, wild west. You just park where you want to. Once you put lines in, people tend to stay within the lines. So I want people's feedback on that. That should be a no-brainer. Do you currently park on Main Street during daytime business hours? That's going to the businesses that do. Always, usually, sometimes, rarely, never. And again, I am talking just Main Street at this point. I haven't gone over into East Main Street, which is probably a whole nother kettle of fish. But I'm not sure if they have as much issues right now with
Jeff, I think you should include East Main Street on this.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
I think, you look at what's over there with the liquor store, the ice cream parlor, the cafe, the Chinese food places. There's quite a bit there that maybe they don't have a big issue, but they may want to have their opinions expressed.
Maybe. I guess the reason I haven't done that is because we didn't change anything over there. There weren't parking meters on that East Main Street anyway.
True, but don't you think, once we start doing this, that we should, in order to maintain consistency, bring whatever we're planning to do all the way around?
Yeah, probably, yeah. We can extend it. There's probably 10 more
Yeah,
that we add to that.
that's probably about it. And plus it's a different flavor of business. You have, when you're talking about how many, you're going to get more different answers on East Main Street than you would on Main Street with regards to hours of parking, because you've got a place like Buell's Florist. They're probably fine with 30 minutes, as well as the ice cream place, but the cafe over there probably would like to see 2-hour parking. So, I think you're just going to see a bunch of different opinions that we should also be seeing.
All right, we'll get that. I'm not really extending beyond really Main Street going south, because there's, other than Sue's, is Elvis South Main Street, or is that still Main Street? Well, there might be.
It starts at where the old dentist was on that.
Okay, so Elby's and where Sue's office is, or a couple that might chime in, but beyond that park, I don't think we're not gonna be looking at.
You've got the bank, the Opera House, the Town Hall,
It's not really a big.
the post office. I mean, yeah, I think,
Well, it's not really a question of a problem, though, it's a question of uniformity. When I look,
Right.
you know, when you look out in front of the town hall, although they're worn out now, probably need repainting, they have very specific delineated parking spaces out in front.
Mhm.
And the bank doesn't so much, and now the meters are gone, so they probably do need to be painted over there as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like you don't have. Well,
No, it's not always a question of room, it's more a question of, you know,
yeah, I don't know if they do something.
yeah, well, we'll add them in anyway. All right, so, if there were designated parking for businesses, employees, or tenants on or off Main Street, would you consider using them? You know, hopefully that goes to a future development where we could have some sort of municipal parking downtown that they could utilize. We asked them what business they have, retail, restaurants, business office, residential rentals, and whatnot. I can make it so that they can put their name in.
Would you like to be contacted?
Yeah, I can add that in.
make it optional.
For six, you want to leave not sure in here, you can take that out.
Which one?
Six. You can continue lines, traffic lines, parking spaces, curbs. I think you should take that out. If, tell them you want a yes or no, or if they're not yes or no, give a comment to why. But get rid of the not sure,
Okay.
in my opinion, because I think you want them to give you an answer, right? Wouldn't you prefer a yes or no answer?
Yeah, some people just might not be have
For
an opinion either way, but yeah, they can always leave it blank, so I can take that up.
For 8.
Yeah.
If there were designated parking, would you consider using it, or say designated parking spaces? Would you consider using them? So change your wording a little bit.
What do you want me to change it to?
If you're gonna say, if there were designated parking, would you consider using it instead of them?
Okay.
Number 8.
And also get rid of the word would and all of that.
If there was,
Probably not, definitely would not. Get rid of would in the answer selections.
yeah, that was actually just a pre-scripted response from Survey Monkey. So I'll see what other options I have.
I think that's fine. You could leave either one.
I missed that. Is there, what was the change there? Definitely would.
Them to it, and then Roxanne's suggesting,
For the responses,
would you consider using it? Definitely, probably not, probably would, or
definitely no.
definitely would not, but you know, removing the wood from it, but I was saying how that was a predetermined
Yeah.
responses from Survey Monkey. I can look and see what other options there are. So, all right, and then the last two, what best describes your business, and then do you believe improving Main Street parking would be beneficial to existing and potentially new business in downtown Thomaston? We'll get a gauge to what people think about that. Is there anything else we want to know or we don't want to know?
Just curious about the number 9, what best describes your business on Main Street. Are there any, you guys would know this, not me, but are there any commercial rentals down there, or is it just all residential rentals?
Well, anything that would be retail, or they may not own the building, but they may be renting from a landlord. There's quite a few that are down there, different businesses, not just retailers, but a lot of the businesses are not necessarily the owners of the buildings, but they are renters.
Commercial flash.
Right,
They're commercial renters.
Um,
right.
Melissa's asking, we want to change retail to retail slash commercial. I might
Well,
actually,
I think retail is different than commercial. Commercial could be anything. That could be an office, that could be a restaurant.
might be business slash commercial. Business office slash commercial might be.
Yeah,
or
yeah. That might be a better area where you should change.
Are we sending this to both the business owners and the building owner, or just one or the other?
I'm sending it to all of them. Because like someone like Red's Hardware definitely has very specific opinions on this, whereas his landlord, he's only one of 8 people that are renting from the landlord. The landlord might be taking the tenant side versus the retailer side on some of these questions.
I feel like this is a slightly related question, but what are the rules, regulations, if any, on vehicles parked on Main Street advertising from their vehicle? Not like a sign on the side of the car or something like that, but like complete trunk open advertising.
I don't think there's any, but maybe Stacy could speak to that. That sounds like a zoning thing.
Like they're selling something from their trunk?
Well, for example, someone might decide to have a Trump pop-up poster on the back of their truck.
Yep, that's might be what I was going for.
Oh, how lucky of a guess is that?
I'm sorry, a what pop-up poster?
So
Trump.
there is a business owner on Main Street who will occasionally park his vehicle in front of his business and open up his trunk and put like a 6 foot by 6 foot sign off the back of it, politically advertising something. Well, I don't know if you could call that advertising, but politically showcasing something.
That's kind of hard to, and I'd want to talk with somebody offline later about that to get more details so I could talk with someone, but signage pertaining to political stuff is, you're getting into First Amendment stuff and everything else like that.
Luckily, we're past
If he's parking in a place where anybody else is allowed to, yeah, this one might need more information.
I suspect there's not much you could do about it unless you had like ordinances on lawn signs and various other types of signs that are in display for the public view. But
I mean, planning and zoning it's taking a while because some other things had to come before it, and it's going to take a while even when they're focused on it just because of the nature of the topic. But they are looking at their zoning regs as pertain to signage, and they are looking at things like vehicles being used to advertise things and stuff like that. But it's hard with political signage, but there are some things we can do in terms of times of year and where things can be done.
I thought there were regulations as far as the length of time.
I can't hear.
Melissa's thinking that there is some sort of regulations on the length of time that signs can be posted.
Yes, we do have some stuff in terms of political signage. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't apply to this because the person may decide on Monday to have the display up, and on Tuesday take it down, and on Thursday put it back up again. So it's very intermittent.
What after these new regulations are put into place and say we decide on something like 2 hour long parking and then, a person is downtown with some kind of signage in their vehicle, will the police be coming along and enforcing it? And what do you do when there's no one in the vehicle?
They're not gonna enforce it.
Yeah, so there's a couple of issues at play here. And honestly, I don't think we can worry as much about the enforcement as we should be worrying about what the overall design is. This is the design of our parking. This is how we would like to see it happen. I think then we hand that over to the town, it's approved, and it's up to police commissioners and the police department to determine how they're going to enforce it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
So, I'm wearing a different hat now if I'm a selectman and police commissioner, then we're gonna have to have a conversation with Jeff Madden and say, is this something that we can do? Is this something that your officers can do? Or how do we go about making that enforcement? But for us, I think we make our recommendations, let the chips fall where they may.
I mean, if we're going to be asking all the retailers kind of how they feel about parking and restrictions and everything, maybe it's not a bad idea to already talk to Jeff and see what the enforcement possibilities are, because we don't want to, go forward and kind of talk to the businesses and say, this is what we're trying to do. And then the police commission comes back and says, no, we're not going to be able to staff that to be able to enforce it. And then I don't want it to us to have a great idea and go ahead with, trying to redo downtown parking and then not have the backup that we need from the police department and have it kind of sit where it is now.
Yeah, let's collect the information from this and see what comes back. And then I think we call Jeff Madden into the conversation and say, hey, this is what everybody's saying, or this is the consensus, or maybe the lack of consensus. So how do we go about this? I know we're going to get pushback from him and the police department because they're going to say they're not staffed to be able to police parking. And I get that. But that doesn't necessarily mean it can't be staffed at some point to do that. Or maybe there's some other authority that could be making that happen. Maybe it's a self-policing authority of the downtown businesses or something like that.
Or a place to make a complaint.
Yeah, or if it's strictly, when businesses are observing it, they make a complaint and then there's a phone call made. It's kind of like shoveling snow in front of your house or building. It's only enforced when there's snow there and you haven't done it and someone complains. Someone complains, they call you up and say, hey, you got to get the snow off your sidewalk.
I kind of agree with Amanda though. If we're going to try and do something and it's never going to be enforced, then what's the point?
Well, I wouldn't say it's never going to be enforced. I'm just saying, right now they have nothing to enforce, and they cannot. The police. We said to the police department, "Hey, you got to do something about parking. Like, what do you want us to do? You don't. The meters are gone. The meters didn't work. There's no designated signage. There's no designated lines. They have no way to know how to do this. Put all this stuff in place and see how it goes. If then we need the police to enforce that, I think then we go to them and say, look, we painted the signs, we put up signs, we painted the lines, we put up signs, we created policies on this. We need some help, and then see where we go from there.
Yeah, I understand everyone's reluctance to put this out before having that conversation with the police department, but just as far as historically speaking, this has been a conversation for years, and the police department is aware that the EDC has been looking at this, but one of the things that they need is some direction. So in order to give them some direction as to what we would like to do down there before we ask them, is we need to find out what the users are looking for. So I think Jeff is on the right path with putting this out first. Because now we'll have something to bring to the selectmen and the police department as to, here's the information. This is what the town, the people that are using the spaces down there are looking for.
And I would preface this, I was gonna put it in the survey, but I think what I'll do is when I email these out to people, there will be a body of the email that explains why we're collecting this at this time. And my explanation is, we've removed the meters based on our previous surveys and the condition of the parking meters. They were removed earlier in 2020. We're now looking for best ways to create new parking for downtown Thomaston now that they're removed. And so we're looking for your feedback. Doesn't mean we're gonna change it necessarily. I mean, I'm hoping we are. But, if this all comes back as deadlocked and nobody can agree on it, then we probably have to go back to the drawing board.
For 10, do you need to check in their fund? I'll take that out. If they're really only going to check one.
Oh, yeah.
And then for done, can you change that to submit? Or is that? the same?
That's standard Survey Monkey thing. I can see if we can change it.
Or so maybe, maybe instruct them to select done when you're completed it or something.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have anything on that?
Well, the stuff that I was originally looking at, Jeff, it's been addressed tonight.
Okay, great. So I'll continue with that and hopefully get it out to businesses shortly. Maybe I'll work with you, Stacy, to try to get a little bit more comprehensive list of the people I want to send this out to.
Sure.
All right. Did we have? We don't have any public comment on this. Is there anything else that anyone from EDC wanted to bring to our meeting tonight? I'm assuming everybody's mics are open and I'm in deafening silence. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make one.
Melissa has made the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay.
Amanda seconded. Okay. Without any further discussion, we will end this meeting. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating. And we'll see you all next month. I guess that'd be one other question. Should we just plan on continuing on Zoom for
I would, yeah.
the unforeseeable future?
Yeah, P&Z is going back to Zoom exclusively for December and January.
Okay.
It's really convenient, at least for me.
Yeah, and the only concern that we might have with EDC, because the town only has one account, and Stacy manages that. If the Board of Ed goes back to it as well.
I've already explained that I can't do any other additional meetings because there was such complete overlap.
Okay, fair enough. But I was going to say we could use my private, my landmark account, and we can pay for the extended meeting times and whatnot too. So, anyways, thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Bye, thanks.
Take care.